You're cruising down a quiet road, music playing softly, when suddenly flashing lights appear in your rearview mirror. Your heart races. Another traffic stop. Most drivers think it's routine, but what if I told you there are police actions at traffic stops that are illegal, yet happen all the time? Knowing these secrets could protect you from fines, searches, or even arrest. But here's the question. How many of these 10 shocking traffic stop secrets do you think the average driver actually knows? Drop your guess in the comments below before we go further. According to official records, traffic stops are one of the most common points of contact between law enforcement and civilians. Courts have ruled that the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures, but officers often operate in gray areas where they can push boundaries. This is why understanding your rights and knowing what actions are truly legal versus questionable is critical for every driver. The first shocking thing is that some officers may request a search of your vehicle without probable cause or your voluntary consent. Courts have clarified that consent must be explicit, knowing, and voluntary. One interpretation is that subtle pressure from an officer, like saying, "It'll be easier if you just let me check," does not legally count as true consent. Another perspective raised in court is that drivers often comply out of fear, not choice, which can be challenged later. Second, many officers claim they smell marijuana to justify a search. While this can create probable cause, it's not automatically valid. The law requires that their suspicion be reasonable and supported by facts. Drivers often don't realize they can politely assert their rights without escalating the encounter. Knowing your legal standing here is key to protecting yourself. Third, traffic stops at night often give officers more leeway for safety concerns. But legally, they must have a justified reason to ask you to step out of your vehicle. Courts examine whether such requests are tied to actual safety issues or are overreach. Knowing your rights allows you to respond appropriately while staying compliant. Fourth, field sobriety tests are not always mandatory, depending on your state's laws. Drivers often feel pressured to comply, but understanding the specifics of implied consent laws can prevent unnecessary legal problems. One interpretation is that refusal may have consequences, but it is still your legal right in many situations. Fifth, dash cams and body cameras can be crucial evidence. Many drivers assume all interactions are recorded, but policies vary by jurisdiction. Having your own video evidence can make a big difference if a legal challenge arises. Courts have relied heavily on recorded interactions when reviewing claims of illegal searches or officer misconduct. Sixth, officers may extend traffic stops without clear cause. Any unnecessary delay beyond the time needed to address the traffic violation may be legally questionable. Courts have ruled that stops must be reasonably limited in scope and duration. Knowing this can help drivers avoid being trapped in prolonged encounters. Seventh, some officers may attempt coercion to get you to admit to minor violations. Whether it's hints about penalties or promises of leniency, legally, anything that pressures a driver without proper advisement can be contested later. Understanding your rights helps you maintain control of the interaction. Eighth, you have the right to remain silent when questioned beyond routine identification and registration. This is a crucial protection under the Fifth Amendment. Many drivers mistakenly answer questions that could later be used against them in court. Being aware of your right to silence is a powerful tool. Ninth, officers may sometimes fail to provide clear legal instructions when asking you to step out or submit to a search. If they don't follow proper protocol, any evidence obtained can be challenged. Courts have consistently emphasized the importance of clear advisement and procedural correctness. 10th, some interactions involve unlawful searches of personal belongings, like purses or cell phones, without a warrant or consent. Federal and state courts have reinforced that such searches require clear legal justification. Drivers who assert their rights politely but firmly often prevent these overreaches. Given these facts, do you think most officers intentionally exploit driver ignorance, or is this just a systemic issue in law enforcement practices? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to protect yourself during a traffic stop, it's essential to know your rights, stay calm, and stay informed. If you found this guide valuable, make sure to subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon so you don't miss future legal breakdowns, and tell us in the comments what topic you want us to cover next. Your next video could be about how to handle DUI stops, your rights during roadside searches, or another eye-opening legal insight. You're driving home after a long day when suddenly red and blue lights flash in your rearview mirror. Your heart beats faster. You pull over, thinking it's routine, But traffic stops are more complex than most drivers realize. Many of the actions officers take are legal, but some cross the line. And if you don't know your rights, you could be unknowingly giving up protections guaranteed by the Constitution. But here's the question. How often do you think drivers truly know what they're legally required to do versus what they're being pressured to do? Share your thoughts in the comments before we dive in. Traffic stops are governed by a combination of federal and state law. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and courts have clarified that stops must be based on reasonable suspicion. However, officers often operate in gray areas, and many drivers are unaware of their rights during these interactions. Let's start with the first illegal move most drivers don't recognize: asking for consent to search without proper advisement. According to federal court rulings, consent must be voluntary, knowing, and explicit. Simply nodding or feeling pressured doesn't meet this standard. One landmark case, Schneckloth v. Bustamante, made it clear that the courts weigh the voluntariness of consent, and pressure, coercion, or misunderstanding can invalidate it. Second, the infamous "smells marijuana" claim. Officers often cite this to justify vehicle searches, but not every odor creates probable cause. Courts have examined whether an officer's claim is reasonable based on training, experience, and the situation. One interpretation is that a driver can politely assert their rights and ask if the officer has a warrant. Another perspective is that challenging probable cause requires careful wording and calm demeanor, which can prevent escalation. Third, being asked to step out of the vehicle. Officers sometimes claim this is for safety, but the law requires an actual justifiable concern. Courts have ruled in cases like Pennsylvania v. Mims and Maryland v. Wilson that officers can ask drivers out for safety, but the scope and context matter. Drivers should know that they must comply, but also have rights regarding personal searches once outside the vehicle. Fourth, field sobriety tests are not automatically mandatory. While refusing may have consequences under implied consent laws, many drivers believe they have no choice. Understanding the law allows a driver to make informed decisions, balancing legal obligations with personal rights. Fifth, recording the encounter can be crucial. Many drivers assume all traffic stops are recorded by body cams or dash cams, but policies vary. Federal and state courts have increasingly relied on personal recordings when evaluating claims of illegal searches or misconduct. Having your own recording can protect you from misrepresentation. Sixth, officers sometimes extend traffic stops without proper cause. A stop should be limited to addressing the traffic violation. Courts have consistently ruled that unnecessary delays, like waiting for backup or questioning beyond the reason for the stop, may be legally challenged. Seventh, drivers often encounter coercive language. Subtle threats, promises, or implications that you'll get a harsher penalty can be illegal if they pressure you into compliance. Knowing your rights allows you to assert them respectfully without escalating tension. Eighth, the right to remain silent is one of the most underutilized protections. You are not required to answer questions beyond identification and registration, and invoking this right can prevent self-incrimination. Courts have repeatedly emphasized that voluntary answers given under pressure can be contested later. Ninth, officers sometimes fail to provide clear legal instructions when asking you to exit or consent to a search. This can be challenged in court, as procedural compliance is required to validate searches or detentions. 10th, unlawful searches of personal items like purses, wallets, or cell phones often occur. The law is clear. Without a warrant, probable cause, or valid consent, such searches can be suppressed as evidence. Federal and state precedents, including Riley v. California, reinforce the protection of digital and personal property during stops. Let's discuss some real-world case examples. In one case, a driver was pulled over for a minor traffic violation. The officer claimed to smell marijuana and demanded a search. The driver politely invoked their rights and refused consent. Court records later showed the officer had no probable cause, and the evidence obtained was dismissed. Another case involved an extended stop where the officer questioned unrelated matters. The court ruled this exceeded legal limits, highlighting the importance of knowing your rights. Given these facts, think about this. Do officers rely on driver ignorance to conduct searches, or are these systemic legal gaps? Share your thoughts in the comments. Traffic stops don't have to be intimidating. The key takeaways are: stay calm, know your rights, assert them politely, and document the encounter if possible. This approach reduces risk and empowers drivers to protect themselves legally. If this video helped you, subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon, and comment below what topic you want us to cover next. Whether it's DUI stops, your rights with vehicle searches, or how to handle roadside questioning, your suggestions shape the next deep dive. You're driving down the road, maybe listening to music or heading home after a long day, when suddenly red and blue lights flash behind you. Your heart races. You pull over, thinking it's routine, but traffic stops are far more complicated than most people realize. Many actions by police are legal, but others can cross the line, and if you don't know your rights, you could unknowingly give them away. But here's the question. How many drivers do you think truly understand what they must legally do versus what they feel pressured to do? Let me know your answer in the comments before we dive in. Traffic stops are governed by a combination of federal and state law. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures, while courts have clarified that stops must be based on reasonable suspicion. Yet officers often operate in gray areas, and most drivers don't know their rights. Let's start with the first critical point. What to say when a cop claims they smell marijuana? Officers frequently use this to justify vehicle searches, but not every claim creates probable cause. Courts consider whether the claim is reasonable based on the officer's training, experience, and context. One interpretation is that a driver can politely assert their rights and ask if the officer has a warrant. Another perspective is that challenging probable cause requires careful wording and calm demeanor, something we'll break down with exact phrases you can use. Next, before stepping out of your vehicle, there are 5 legal phrases every driver should know. Your words matter. Simple, calm statements can protect your rights, clarify consent, and reduce unnecessary escalation. Knowing these phrases isn't about being confrontational, it's about staying protected under the law. Now let's discuss illegal things police often do at traffic stops. Many drivers assume that officers can extend stops indefinitely, search vehicles without consent, or pressure you to answer personal questions. Courts have repeatedly ruled that unnecessary delays or coercion can invalidate stops and searches. Awareness is the first step toward protection. Another key point: recording traffic stops. Many drivers assume body cams or dash cams are always on, but policies vary. Personal recordings can protect you from misrepresentation and provide crucial evidence if rights are violated. Then there's the classic step out of the car scenario. Courts have said officers can ask drivers out for safety, but the justification must be valid. Cases like Pennsylvania versus Mims and Maryland versus Wilson clarify that officers cannot use this as a blanket reason to conduct searches. They must have a legally valid concern. Field sobriety tests are another area of confusion. Many drivers think they have no choice, but knowing state implied consent laws allows you to make informed decisions while understanding potential consequences. It's also important to know how to handle consent to search. Courts require that consent is voluntary, knowing, and explicit. Nods or implied gestures under pressure may not be valid. Landmark rulings like Schneckloth versus Bustamante emphasize that voluntary consent is a legal requirement. Let's not forget protecting your personal property: purses, wallets, and cell phones. Cases like Riley v. California make clear that warrantless searches of digital devices are illegal in most situations. Being aware of your rights here is critical. Now, some real-world examples. One driver was pulled over for a minor violation. The officer claimed to smell marijuana and demanded a search. The driver calmly invoked their rights and refused consent. Later, the court ruled that the search was unlawful and evidence was suppressed. Another case involved an extended stop beyond the traffic violation. The court determined the extension was illegal, highlighting how ignorance of rights can lead to unlawful searches. Throughout all of this, the key takeaways are simple but powerful. Stay calm, know your rights, assert them politely, and document the encounter if possible. These steps reduce risk and empower you to protect yourself legally. Now here's something drivers often overlook: what to say before you open the car door or step outside. Using the right words in the right order can prevent unnecessary escalation, protect your Fourth Amendment rights, and keep the situation under legal control. And here's a final tip many people miss. Police sometimes rely on driver confusion or fear to gain consent. By understanding traffic stop law, probable cause, consent rules, and your constitutional protections, you remove that advantage. Knowledge is power. Given all these facts, let me ask you one last question. Do you think traffic stops rely on driver ignorance, or are these systemic gaps in law enforcement training? Share your answer in the comments. let's start a conversation. If this video helped you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon for notifications, and comment below what topic you want us to cover next. Whether it's DUI rights, search and seizure, or handling roadside questioning, your suggestions will shape our next investigative breakdown. Stay informed, protect yourself, and remember, knowing your rights isn't just smart, it could save you from legal trouble.